Sports Network.
Good evening and welcome to the Dynasty Nerd Show on the Better Sports Network. I am Dennis Bennett. I'm in for Garrett Price this evening. Welcome to the show. I am so glad to have everybody in. It's been a while since I've been in the big chair, so I'm looking forward to it. We got a little bit of news today, some ongoing news we're going to talk about. We're going to have Pete Bartowski, or Peter's probably the more formal name. Peter Bartowski on and talk some ADP. He's been collecting the Dynasty Nerds ADP, and we've got a big old barrel full of ADP to talk about. We'll build a team to see where we would go in particular rounds. Then we're going to dip into, I've done my first productive struggle team ever. I'm 14 rounds or so into it. And, I've never done one. I'm a productive struggle virgin, and I don't know if I'm doing it right. I do know I've gathered, I think, 3 extra 2024 first and 2 extra 2025 first. So it seems like it's going well. I didn't make my first pick till 207. And then I've skipped a couple rounds along the way, moved back. But first, I want to start out talking about our guy. We were all waiting, and where would DeAndre Hopkins go? What was the plan going to be? We know that Arizona, they want to trade him. They want to get rid of him. They searched and searched and searched, did not find any takers. And as time went on, eventually they cut him. No post-June 1st cut. No, they just ate the money. We're going to let him go. Now everybody's, we want him to go to Kansas City. I've been calling for him to go to Kansas City since January. Others have said Buffalo. And for what we expect DeAndre Hopkins to want, which is to win and make money, seems like those two locations make some sense. There was a little talk, he's going to go reunite with Deshaun Watson in Cleveland. He's going to go back to Houston where he's comfortable. And, he was there most of his career. But then all of a sudden, out of the blue this week, we hear his first visit is to Tennessee this Sunday. He's going to go visit his old buddy, Mike Vrabel. Vrabel spent 5 years in Houston as a coach while DeAndre Hopkins was there. So they got to go against each other in practice. He got to see him close up. There's an established relationship there. Does that make it easy? Is Hopkins looking for comfort? Is he looking, is it about money? Is it about winning? Can it be about both? It seems like it. So Tennessee seems like not the place to go. But then again, we look at it, and Tennessee's made the playoffs 4 out of 5 years under Vrabel. Vrabel has a 58.5% winning percentage. Last year was a down year. The downside, Tennessee also has Derrick Henry and runs the ball a lot. They have one of the lowest volume passing offenses in the NFL. And it seems like Tannehill's kind of at the end of his career, running out of juice. But they do have Treylon Burks, who looks like he's on the rise. If Derrick Henry's healthy, we got Chig. I'm just going to call him Chig Okonkwo at tight end. So there are some weapons. They drafted Skoronski out of Northwestern. They're sliding him in at left guard. So they're improving their offensive line. Does that mean they're going to throw the ball 600 times? No, I don't think it does. I think they'll still be a run-centric team with Derrick Henry, but we have seen Ryan Tannehill support a couple wide receivers. In 2018 or 19, it was, A.J. Brown was wide receiver 12, and Corey Davis was wide receiver 30. Now, I think if Hopkins was to pair up with Burks, I feel like that would close up a little. Maybe you've got a wide receiver 18 and a wide receiver 28, something like that. But there would be enough volume there to support that. And you've got Derrick Henry pulling people to the line, opening that up. It doesn't work because well, yes, they're making the playoffs. And we look at this with our fantasy teams all the time. I just submitted a blurb to Bob Harris for one of his magazines, and it was, well, how do you know when to go into a rebuild? Well, I always look at my points for. Well, if you look at Tennessee's points for, it keeps telling them, hey, you should go into a rebuild. And it seemed like when they traded away A.J. Brown for first, that was where they were headed. But Mike Vrabel, being a very proud Ohio State alum, is like, no, we're going to win now. Jeffrey Simmons came out in the press this week, and his quote was, we're not rebuilding. We're trying to build a winning culture. So they want to win. I love the spark. I love the spunk there, but it does feel like it's a courtesy visit. Vrabel was with him for 5 years. He's going to go. When you're trying to get the best deal possible, you want to take on all suitors. And that's kind of what it feels like for DeAndre Hopkins going to Tennessee. He's stepping in. He's saying, I'm going to go there. And we've seen weirder things happen, but I don't really feel like Tennessee is going to be the landing spot for him. I like DeAndre Hopkins still. He's never been a guy that wins with speed. He's a tough guy, and that kind of suits Tennessee's image. They win close games. They'll battle you tooth and nail. And so DeAndre Hopkins' play style and image really works with that. They only have $8.3 million in cap space, so they would have to do a little bit of work to fit him in. But the cap is a myth, as we like to say in fantasy. So I like DeAndre Hopkins. I like him. If he goes to Tennessee, when Peter comes on and we start talking about ADP and doing the draft, we'll kind of talk about when we get to the DeAndre Hopkins area, we'll talk a little bit about, what will drive his move up or move down in his ADP. So the next thing is we had even bigger news. Is it really news, though? I mean, much like the DeAndre Hopkins, when is he going to get released? Not if he's going to get released. We've been on Dalvin Cook watch now for 3 months. We've been expecting him to get traded. He didn't get traded before the draft. Then it was like, oh, well, they drafted Dwayne McBride. They drafted Ty Chandler last year. They re-signed Alexander Mattison to one of the better free agent running back deals. I thought Mattison was going to leave Minnesota, much like Michael Turner, who backed up LaDainian Tomlinson back in the day, played 4 years behind Tomlinson, then left and went and was a star running back for the Atlanta Falcons. I felt like that was going to be Madison's path. But clearly, Minnesota said, no, we have a plan for you. We're willing to pay you on a second contract. We want you to be the guy. You just have to be patient. So now Madison is back, and now Madison is the lead dog. If you have been rostering Madison and being patient, we've seen him put up RB1 numbers. He's kind of the Brock Purdy of running backs, though. It's a very small sample size because he doesn't get more than 1 or 2 games a year, 3 games a year where he is featured because Dalvin Cook is out. For the most part, when he has the spotlight, he plays well. Sans, a couple years ago, it was start Alexander Mattison in your playoffs. And if you did, he kind of knocked you out. He was one of the reasons you didn't. But the next week, he went off and had a fantastic game. So I like Alexander Mattison. It feels like Minnesota, they're on the last year of Kirk Cousins. They have Justin Jefferson, who's the featured point of their offense. So they're going to be looking to add a quarterback that can throw. They're going to move on from Kirk Cousins, who is expensive. I don't think they're going to be in a position to draft one of the top quarterbacks. So they're going to have to go via trade or free agency to get somebody that can power that passing offense. we'll see where that is come next offseason and who is available. For fantasy, uh, you know, Dalvin Cook has been rumored to Miami. Well, Miami re-signed their entire backfield. They were all free agents, and then they drafted Devin Achane. Is there room there? Yeah, they could cut a couple guys. They could bring him in and install him as the one. That option is there. It brings him home. Denver has been flirting with the idea of bringing in Dalvin Cook. Now, it was said recently they said we're not interested in trading for Dalvin Cook. Now, if they go get Dalvin Cook, that gives me a little bit of pause on my Javonte Williams front. They brought in Pirine, but Pirine he's a backup. He's a guy that when you have a person that gets injured, he can fill in for 2 or 3 games. He's not a guy that you want to hang your hat on for an entire season. I like Pirine's game. I like what he does, but he just doesn't have a lot of burst. He doesn't have a lot of wiggle. While at 230 pounds, you'd think he had some power, but he's not a real big power back. Good pass catcher, good pass blocker. In the run game, he'll get you what's blocked. But there was a reason that Joe Mixon was the back with the better numbers at Oklahoma when him and Pirine shared the backfield. Pirine just isn't as explosive, and he's at this stage of his career, 7, 8 years into the NFL, 6 years into the NFL, we're not going to see any new explosion happening. So Dalvin, could he fit in Denver? I think so. That tells me that they're not going to bring Javonte Williams along very quickly. They're going to hold him back and hold him back. We don't know specifically, like exactly how serious Javonte's injury was and how he's doing on his recovery. All we know is what they tell us. Oh, he's doing good. He's doing good. He's doing good. But then why are you flirting with one of the better running backs in the NFL? And yes, Dalvin is one of the better running backs. Does he need a lot of volume? Yeah, but I mean, let's be fair. All of our fantasy running backs are better with volume. We want them to get volume. We need them to get volume. Volume is where points come from. I want Dalvin to go somewhere as a manager who rosters Dalvin. I want him to go somewhere that is either going to make it A, enticing for me to trade him, or B, enticing for me to go get him to win a title. I think Denver provides that. I expect a little bounce back from Russell Wilson. I don't think he's washed up just yet. I think he had a bad year. There was some off-the-field stuff going on with the passing of a friend. The Nathaniel Hackett offense just did not click, whether that was Hackett's management style that led to the issues. We're not 100% sure. We know that Hackett did well in Green Bay as the OC and quarterbacks coach, and now he's back in that role. But maybe it's just Aaron Rodgers makes Nathaniel Hackett look good. That would not be the first time that we saw a quarterback make a coach look good. Adam Gase, Peyton Manning. So will Nathaniel Hackett get another head coaching job? I don't know. We'll see. We got some comments into the in the chat here. So Better Boss wants to know what's productive struggle. Sedated Fort kind of answered that a little bit. So it's basically you sacrifice year number 1. I'm not looking to win. Honestly, if everything goes perfect for me this year, next year, my picks will be Caleb Williams at number 1 and Marvin Harrison at 102 because I'll have both of those picks. You want to sacrifice the first 1 to 2 years, and the expectation is that you build a really young core. So you go lots of wide receivers that are young, talented, young quarterbacks, young tight ends that are all lining up to have their breakouts in the next 1 to 2 years and then kind of run with it. And then you add that additional draft capital in the next 1 to 2 years, and then you keep replenishing it. And by year 3, you're looking at a team that should be able to compete for 5 years or more because you haven't wasted a draft pick. You're not drafting Mike Evans. You're not drafting Derrick Henry. I did draft a couple running backs probably earlier than I should have. But like I said, I am a productive struggle newbie. And so, but the running backs I drafted Zach Charbonnet and who was the other guy? I'll forget. We'll talk about it later with Peter. In other news, and we're having a lot of, is it really news? They're saying it's news, but is it really news? Bryce Young is the QB1 in Carolina. Oh, color me unsurprised. I'm not the biggest Bryce Young fan, but I held out no expectations that he was not going to be the starting quarterback in Carolina. They need to get him ready. Andy Dalton has had a good career. I think he's going to be a good mentor. I think Carolina invested some in their offensive line, in free agency, in the draft. They don't have squat for wide receivers. I'm not investing anything there. I think this season, Miles Sanders is going to have a pretty good year. And Bryce Young, he's going to be in that QB 14 to 20, 24 range, maybe 16 to 24. They're going to take it easy. Frank Reich, they're not going to put him out there. They know that he's not big. They're not going to put him in harm's way. They want to execute a ball control offense with short passing and take shots when necessary. But mostly they want to keep their quarterback from getting hit. We've seen several promising careers ruined because the offensive coordinator, head coach, didn't invest in protecting the quarterback. David Carr, Tim Couch, they come to mind right off the bat. Those guys took a beating. Mark Brunell, those guys took a beating early in their careers playing for bad teams. And it doesn't make sense that you're going to invest all of this draft capital and this money in what's supposed to be the face of your franchise. And then you're just going to stick them out there and let them get the snot knocked out of them. To me, I think Bryce Young is a guy you're counting on him in 2 years to develop into a high volume passer. I expect Carolina is going to bring in some more wide receivers. They're going to give him some weapons. That only makes sense. They'll build their team. Frank Reich he's a pretty good coach, and I think he knows how to develop quarterbacks. So let's get on. Fantasy Alarm. The Fantasy Alarm All Sports subscription. Get all-pro access to Fantasy Alarm for the award-winning DFS playbook, covering 10 different sports. That's, if you're watching, that's 10. That's all of my fingers and thumbs. Fantasy football, NFL betting, plus tools, podcast, a Discord chat. For a limited time, get all of this for 50% off your first 6 months with promo code ALARM50. That's promo code ALARM50 at fantasyalarm.com. Start your free trial today. So we're getting ready. We're going to bring Peter up here to the stage. Peter.
Hi, everyone.
You're not doing the Dr. Evil thing with the cat today?
Oh, she is.
I don't know if you saw on Twitter the other day, Peter released himself a little video talking
She'll be here.
Football, petting the cat like Dr. Evil.
She'll be here.
Funny.
Oh, yeah. How are you doing today, Dennis?
I am doing great. Garrett asked me last night, said he had something come up. Would I host? We did some tests on my equipment because I don't know if you were here a couple of weeks ago, but like my stuff just died. So I'm in the process of getting a new computer, but right now I'm borrowing the son's. He's 18. He's young. His computer is young. I'm going to use all my resources.
Nice. You look great, so it's working.
So,
man, I'm looking over that productive struggle draft right now. I cannot wait to talk about that. But
yeah,
that's just
hopefully I did good. So, yep. I was bringing you in because I wanted to talk about the ADP. We do a lot of work at Dynasty Nerds. We're talking about do this trade, do that trade, draft this rookie here, don't draft this rookie there. And it's been 6-8 weeks ago, you took hold of the ADP for Dynasty Nerds, and now we get it like fresh. It's like always fresh. We're getting new stuff, and we get to see how people are moving and what's going on. And looking at May to June, the top of the draft didn't really move a whole heck of a lot.
Nope.
CeeDee Lamb dropped 1, Anthony Richardson up 1, Joe Burrow up 1 spot, Jamar Chase up 1 spot. But for the most part, it's going how we wanted to. As I scrolled through, it wasn't until around the middle of the 4th, we see Travis Etienne drop 6 spots.
Yep.
Is Tank Bigsby that big a threat?
Well, so here's the hard thing is I think that good old Travis is being drafted. He was being drafted with the mindset of this guy's going to be an elite bell cow running back. There's no one going to be there. Jermichael Hasty is not a worry for his workload. And I think what people have realized, I think this is kind of coming back to the mean for him. Mean, not meme. Of like, he is a very good running back, but he's not that tier that belongs with a Saquon Barkley, and Austin Eckler, even in my opinion, like a Najee Harris or Josh Jacobs, of just that security and workload, but also security and talent. Everyone loves to call him a natural pass catcher, but to be honest, there's the cat. To be honest, he had troubles catching the ball in college and in the first year of the NFL. So there is questions about that still. There's questions about his game. There's questions about his foot still, how he runs. I know some PTs that are still kind of like that's kind of a worry with how he runs for the long term. And also I think that people start looking at the schedule for the Jaguars, and they're going to have a harder schedule this year because they're seen as a better team. So harder matchups. Tank Bigsby, I love Tank, but he isn't that much of a worry for me. But I think if anything, this is more of a natural regression to where Etienne should be drafted. I mean, he's back-to-back with Walker right now. So those are both the running backs that we thought were the young studs coming in with workhorse duties, getting both rookie running backs drafted fairly high. So, and Sedated Fork, I see you. My wheel Dynasty team sucked. If you guys haven't seen that video, go look at the Dynasty Nerd channel and see how bad my team was. It was very bad.
I mean, it happens to all of us,
The first question was name a player with the letter A that his name starts with the letter A, and I went Adam Troutman. That was my initial guess. Which that did not set me up very well.
Yeah, that's not great for fantasy.
What do you think about good old Travis?
I feel like he's going to get the shot to be the starter, to get the top half of the volume. But I also think that Tank Bigsby, he was like, I think 18th or 19th in the nation in fewest yards before contact. So he played on a terrible team and was just getting hit in the backfield all the time. And yet he still had some of the best yards after contact numbers. Yep. Now, Bigsby doesn't have the breakaway speed that Etienne does. Etienne, he's a serviceable pass catcher. I think that getting him away from having to worry about running the ball, maybe it makes him a little bit better, gives him a little more freedom. And we've seen some of these guys that they're productive on fewer touches because they're out in space more and they don't have to take as many hits. Etienne's got decent size. He's not a small guy. I don't think his vision is terrific, and I don't think his wiggle is terrific. I think he's like fast in a straight line.
Yep.
But if you're kind of close to him and he's got to go around you, you're probably going to get him because he has to slow down enough that he can get around you without falling, and so you get him versus someone like Bigsby or even David Montgomery is a great example of a guy that doesn't have great speed, but he forces a lot of missed tackles because he's really good with lateral movement. He doesn't have to slow down a lot to go sideways. Part of it is because there's not a lot of slowing down he can do until he's actually stopped. So, you give a little, you take a little. Montgomery is a guy who turns 5-yarders into 10-yarders, and Etienne will turn a 5-yarder into a 70-yarder. And at the end of the day, the numbers may match up. It just one looks a lot more exciting than the other.
Well, yeah, and I would actually compare Etienne's game to Tevin Coleman. I remember when he was on the Falcons, everyone was like, okay, he's going to be the next great thing after Devonta Freeman, and Tevin Coleman lands on was it 49ers directly afterwards?
Yeah.
But he just
never went there from Atlanta.
Yeah, and he just never thrived with volume. And I think that's kind of the same thing here is just he's a very dynamic running back, but he's also not going to be a running back that's going to have a heavy amount of volume. And I think that's why the Jaguars drafted Tank is because they want to be able to be efficient in the run game.
Cruz Ruiz is in the chat saying, I traded Dalvin for Kittle and Kyler Murray.
Oh my goodness. So is this super flex? If this is, I mean, even if it's one quarterback, that's still pretty sweet. But yeah, right?
The thing, so Kittle is what, 29, getting ready to be 30. Yep. Kyler's little, can't stay unbroke. When Kyler gets dinged up, it takes away one of the biggest advantages that he has, which is his running. And I think coming back from injury, he's going to be a lot more restrained. I'm not sure what Gannon is going to do. I forget who he brought in as his OC, but like, what is that offense going to look like when Kyler Murray gets healthy is really going to be the question that we all have. Now, I think Arizona is going to be bad with or without Kyler. If Kyler's out, I think Mike Clay projected Kyler to play 11 games. I just think they'll be in a big enough hole that they're not going to be able to make it up. There's some what's the alliteration they have going for Caleb Williams? It's not Tank for Tua. It's something or other for Caleb Williams.
Oh, really? Okay. I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, I heard it. I just don't remember what it was. I haven't heard it enough.
Cool kids like you are, though.
To me, I think it makes sense because I feel like I could probably move Kyler. Yeah, I've never been a Kyler Murray guy. I haven't been a big fan, and honestly, I don't think he's lived. If it wasn't for his ability to run, he hasn't really lived up to expectations. And when he does run, he gets hurt, and then it limits him, and it actually hurts his team. And so that, from both a football standpoint and a fantasy standpoint, and Kittle seems to miss a couple games every year, it feels like, or he disappears for 3 or 4 games where he's non-existent. Phenomenal player. Kittle's a great blocker, a dynamic runner, but now they're getting a lot of mouths to feed. They've got Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Kittle. Yeah. And it just, and I don't think Brock Purdy is going to throw the ball enough to feed all of those mouths. I think there's going to be games where you're like, wow, I can't believe that I got, 29 points from Brandon Ayuk or 28 points from George Kittle or 33 points from Deebo, because it's all most consistently, I think the points are going to come from Christian McCaffrey. So,
yeah. And so the awesome thing about George Kittle is he has this ability that there's going to be 5 or 6 weeks of the season that he is pretty much the tight end one, and he blows up and he scores 20 to 30 points and he looks awesome. And he provides that, he has that ability for those blow up weeks. With a lot of tight ends that are even top 10 tight ends, they offer a little bit better of a floor, but they don't offer that upside. But yeah, it's a hard thing with Kittle, because on one hand, it kind of matters what league you're in, because some people view Kittle as pretty much trash. But I don't know. It's hard to tell. He might be a little bit Mike Evans-y this year with just his blow up games and then.
Yeah, it's getting to be that time. Well, we're going to hit a break here at the bottom of the hour. Peter, once we come back, it's going to be team building with the ADP.
Let's do it.
Anybody who's watching this, getting ready for the rookie draft, so let's do an all-out blitz on this. Should you be drafting for need, or should you be drafting for talent? And I'll give you an example. Oftentimes, I have pretty good receivers. My receiver core is usually really good for my dynasty teams. My running back core, usually not so bueno. I don't know if I just focus on receivers and tight ends too much, but my running backs, I usually need players here. If I am sitting at like the 103, the 104, the 105, should I be, reaching on a guy like Zach Charbonnet? Or should I be looking at drafting guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba, or Dalton Kincaid, or Jordan Addison, stuff like that? How do you handle weighing drafting for need versus talent for rookie drafts, Pat?
Generally, I think it makes sense to go with the talent and, like talent over need. And I do think, best ball drafts are a little differently because you can't make moves in season. But in managed leagues, whether it's redraft or dynasty, I think positional balance is like the most overrated thing in fantasy. You can make trades, go with the talent, go with the value on the draft board, and worry about positional balance later on.
However you're invested in sports, from betting to fantasy, collectibles, and more, join our community on Better Sports Network.
And we're back. Time to do a little team building. Peter and I, we think we got to room together at the Dynasty Nerds annual meeting while we were off doing some team building there, watching the NFL draft. I don't know. It was more of a loft together, not really a room together, but nice nonetheless, right?
Yep. It was great.
So, would you think it'd be more fun to draft from the back half on a 12-teamer or the front half? What do you want to do?
I would say the most challenging position to draft for me currently is around the 9 spot.
All right, so let's say we have the 109. It's a dynasty startup, super flex, and the caveat being we're not really going to do any trades. Yes, we recognize that in real life, in a super flex startup, that there's going to be a lot of trades, but we're more looking at the values of the players, where they're being drafted, where we're going to be targeting them if we're drafting from this spot. So we're going to go with the 109, the 204, so on and so forth. So as we look at round one, like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty clear. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Justin Jefferson, Lamar Jackson, and Jamar Chase. We're just going to say they're off the board because that's the ADP. So at the 109, we're looking at Lawrence, Fields, Robinson, Bijan, CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown. Like, do we dare go
Did you say
non-quarterback?
Did you not mention Anthony Richardson, by the way? You're saying non-quarterback. No, I'm going Trevor Lawrence here. So
yeah, that's where I'm comfortable going Trevor Lawrence probably as early as 107. this year. I feel like he's going to have a great year. Are any of his wide receivers pushing for top 6? No. But I think they're 3 wide receivers and that tight end all have an opportunity to be high output players. They're going to throw the ball. Lawrence is quite mobile. Him and Justin Herbert, for being guys that are 6'6", can get up and down the field pretty well. And so they're big enough to kind of shake off arm tackles or people swiping by him in the pocket. And if they have to take off, they can get down the field and pick up first downs. So I agree. Trevor Lawrence, as much as I want to pick Justin Fields because I love Ohio State, right now, Trevor Lawrence is just leaps and bounds ahead of him as a quarterback. He has better weapons. There's better coaching around him right now. If somebody wanted to invest in Justin Fields here because of the rushing upside, I'm not going to argue against it for them, but I think you're betting on his development as a passer coming along and the team sort of building around him a little better. You know, they got DJ Moore, they got Darnell Mooney, Claypool, Cole Kmet, but there's still work to do with the weapons. So I'm with you. I think Trevor Lawrence is the way to go here.
Yeah. And side note, I don't know if I've talked to you about this or not, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and it's time to say this live. But I would actually take Anthony Richardson over Justin Fields.
I don't hate that just because it's 3 years younger, 3 years, 2 or 3 years fewer NFL years. So if it doesn't work out, you haven't set yourself back. By all accounts, Richardson isn't as good a passer coming into the league as Fields is. So, that's what most of the scouts and pundits have said.
Yeah.
I think Richardson's going to be fine. We'll see what Shane Steichen does.
So the way that I view with Richardson is right now he's not as good of a passer as Fields, but I think he actually has a little bit more natural talent than Fields does as a natural passer. And so I actually think he has better upside as a passer. And I view their rushing upsides as quite similar, maybe even on the side of Richardson for long term since he has the size. But yeah, either one of those as the next quarterbacks off the board though are great picks, and they'll score a lot of fantasy football points.
All right, so we went Lawrence to start our draft.
Yep.
When you're drafting Superflex startups, how early are you looking to get your second quarterback? Are you trying to balance your draft a little bit?
I prefer if I can get a quarterback with my next pick. I like that if they fall in a certain tier, and that also allows me to get value everywhere else if it drops, and even if quarterback value drops again, I can grab another quarterback and have 3 great quarterbacks. But around this pick, I'm looking at it now. There's a couple players that I like, but for quarterback, but I actually would probably be targeting a positional player here, a skill player.
Yeah, and I look at it, like Christian McCaffrey is the guy who's at the ADP, the 204, and as good as he has been, and as good as I expect him to be this year, I'm probably not going to draft him even at the 204. I'd be okay probably dropping back if I was closer to the 2-3 turn. I think I could stomach getting McCaffrey, but I also know he's never going to make it there. He missed like all but 10 games of 2 seasons, and we want to forget that sometimes because of just how good he is. And he just turned 28, so he's at the age cliff for running backs. I guess it helped that he had most of 2 seasons off, so maybe he's a little fresher. To me, I'm gonna go like Watson and Dak Prescott are the quarterbacks that are around here. Honestly, I think there's a tier break between Watson and Prescott. Maybe not huge, but I clearly want Watson over Prescott.
If Watson was on the board, I would draft him here.
Yeah,
But
and so, but
little bit
in our ADP, he went the pick before us. Well,
sniped.
At 206 ADP, we got Garrett Wilson sitting there.
You can't say no.
So, what's that?
I love it. We can't say no to that. I feel like
I
that's
know.
okay.
Well, he's my dynasty wide receiver 3, and we're grabbing him at 204 as wide receiver 5.
Yep.
To me, that screams value, and it was value before Aaron Rodgers got there, because we're looking at it from a dynasty lens, and frankly, we're only going to have or with no dynasty lenses now that you've taken your glasses off. We know Rodgers is probably there at most 2 years. He just it seems like he just wants to go to New York and be better than Brett Favre was.
Yeah.
So Rodgers will be gone in a couple years. I think Garrett Wilson still has a ton of talent. I'm not worried about Alan Lazard. I'm not worried about Randall Cobb. I'm not worried about Mecole Hardman. I'm not even honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Corey Davis caught the second most passes for the wide receivers there.
Yeah.
They like him. They were talking about, he's a great blocker. He's going to be on the field. That's where Lazard made his money. So they're going to make each other redundant. I don't know that there's going to be a ton of fantasy value with consistency between those two, but there's going to be a whole lot of fantasy value with Garrett Wilson. So we started out 109, Trevor Lawrence, 204, Garrett Wilson. So moving down, we got Jalen Waddle, Amon Ra, Breece Hall, Bryce Young, Jonathan Taylor, Kyler Murray, Gibbs, Olave, Stroud, Pitts. Let's see, we're looking to get to the 310. So at the 310, we're looking at Saquon Barkley. So boy, we got a lot of old running backs landing on our spots on ADP. So who do you like? Do we want to go? So Tua went just before us, a couple picks, and in the ADP, there's no more quarterbacks for at least a dozen picks in the ADP. Yep. Do you reach on a quarterback because you like him here?
No. So I view the next tier up here to be Daniel Jones, and he's projected to be around the next pick. So I'm still going positional player here, but I'm targeting wide receiver. And a young wide receiver at that. So we get that stack. I'm looking at, so are we picking from the 309 or 310?
309, I think, yeah.
Okay. So JSN's on the board. DK Metcalf's on the board. Devonta Smith, Drake London is there. But the player that I would be targeting would be probably Devonta Smith here.
I love that pick.
10. Yeah. And so you keep on stacking youth and talent and high positional value together. So
we've got the Slim Reaper as our third pick at the 309. He caught 90 some odd passes last year with AJ Brown there. He's the volume passing guy there. Brown is the guy that is going to get the big yards. And Smith still had close to 1,200 yards. It's weird because I don't mind his slight frame. Well, it's a huge knock for me for Kyler Murray, but for Devonta Smith, I can live with him weighing 175 pounds.
Yep. No, I wide receiver 10 or wide receiver 9 in certain formats, but he showed that he can do it. And honestly, I just love drafting talented players, know, and he's arguably the most talented wide receiver in the league. Obviously he doesn't have the physical traits that allow him to be in that Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson tier, but he still is a player that will be a difference maker on your team.
Yeah, so, and wide receivers that were on the board there, we could have taken Jackson Smith and Jigba, a rookie going to one of your favorite teams because, for some reason we have more than one favorite team. I know I bang.
Hey, they're both Washington.
I've got two favorite teams too.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf, Metcalf is a guy that he's grown on me. Like, I liked AJ Brown better when they were coming into the league. Metcalf, the knock was he can only do one thing. And while he's added to that, he can do more than one thing. The things he does really, really, really good. And he's got something you can't teach, which is size and speed. It's 6'3" and 230 pounds at a 4.3 40. And he's got good hands. So he's a great receiver and can make plays. So I like that. So we started off with Trevor Lawrence, followed it up with Garrett Wilson, and then Devontae Smith. So we're looking good. We have the potential of 2 wide receiver ones for fantasy in our first 3 rounds. I kind of like that.
I love it.
So then at the 404, our next pick, is this where do we reach up to the next tier for a quarterback here?
Yeah, I'm targeting Danny Dimes here because after that, I look at the quarterbacks that are available. You get the vets with potential similar outputs, but just shorter shelf lives. And I still view Daniel Jones as a talented younger quarterback for fantasy football. So that's my pick here.
Yeah, and I'm not going to fight you on it. It's a reach of about we're at the 404, so it's a reach of about 5 spots in the ADP. I don't hate, if we decided to keep going young receivers, Drake London is there. There's not really, it's the 4th round. In a dynasty startup, I'm not really ready to start taking running backs. We've got ETN, Walker, Josh Jacobs, Najee Harris there. So I'm not really ready to go there. So I agree. I'm good to reach up, get that QB2. He's got the rushing upside just like Lawrence. And we get to see was 2022 a mirage when it comes to turnovers for Daniel Jones.
Daniel turnovers.
Yeah.
So you are a avid don't draft rookie tight ends. I think you're the leader of the train there.
Someone's got to drive.
Where do you land on drafting tight ends in a startup that are already proven, like a TJ Hawkinson? Are you tempted with him right there instead of a Daniel Jones?
I think it comes down to sort of how the team is feeling. Like I'm pretty much out on Kelsey in a startup, just too expensive.
Yep.
If Mark Andrews falls some, I don't hate grabbing him. Like if I can get him, Andrews' ADP is 311. If I can get him around after that, late 4th, early 5th, it's rare. I don't mind going there. Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson, those are guys that I'm still not off the Kyle Pitts train. He had over 1,000 yards as a rookie on a terrible team. Terrible team last year, and he got injured. So I don't hate those either way. And it just depends on like where I'm at. Like if I like the guys that are the receivers that are there, I'm probably passing on the tight end because I don't mind getting guys like David Njoku later.
Yep.
He's one of my favorite tight ends. He's
Yep.
big, he's athletic, he's stable. Is he going to rack up points like Kelsey or Andrews? No, probably not. but
Um,
I'm going to invest in the other positions.
so Keith has a question. Would you trade JSN for Addison?
I would not.
No, I would
they're
actually.
basically back to back in my rankings, but
Yeah.
I just like JSN better, and I'm willing to wait for Tyler Lockett to retire.
Yeah. So for me, I would view JSN around the 5th overall player, tied with Gibbs. But let's say if I was at the 108 and Addison is going to be there, or the 105 with JSN, I would be wanting a first plus the 108 to trade up to get JSN. So that's how much of a value difference I view the two right there. But Addison's great. He's in a good spot, but I think JSN has the actual ability to be the high volume alpha on that team in a couple years, but Addison's not going to do that with Justin Jefferson.
I feel like JSN, he could be consistently wide receiver 8 to 15.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel like Addison has that consistent ceiling. And part of it is that Jefferson is there.
Yeah.
But also Addison is part of that group of teeny tiny wide receivers that came into the NFL this year that have a long history of coming into the NFL and not producing really big numbers for fantasy. Yeah. I'm okay to pass on those guys, and I'll take a share here or there if they're falling late in the first round. I don't mind grabbing, and I'm grabbing Addison. I think I've drafted 1, maybe 2 shares of Addison. I haven't drafted any Flowers. There's some Josh Downs. I just took Josh Downs in my productive struggle, but I'm drafting all rookies pretty much there. So, all right. Yeah, so now we're moving.
If Jordan Addison,
Daniel Jones and Trevor Lawrence are 2 quarterbacks. Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith. But before we do that, let's talk about Better Insights. Get the Better Sports Network newsletter emailed to you every day, not once a week, not twice a week, every day, including our daily Better Bet, exclusive offers, program alerts, special events, and top moments. Register for free right now at bettersports.com. Y'all know where bettersports.com is because that's how you got here. Go register for the newsletter, Better Insights. So
bada bing, bada boom.
We're up with the 509.
Yeah, really quick. Sedated Fork also commented that he thinks that JSN is going to free up DK Metcalf a lot, just with coverage and all that stuff. How do you think DK and JSN project long term? Do you think that they will be that 1A, 1B, or do you think that DK will be that alpha on that team?
I think DK is the alpha on that team. I think we've seen Lockett and Metcalf, fit together like a puzzle. I think JSN is going to slide right in there. The biggest obstacle that they have is Pete Carroll wanting to run the ball 50 times a game. If Geno, I have concerns. Geno's going to come back to earth this season.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Brandon Lloyd type of breakout, that year 8 breakout.
And I mean, his second year was not as good as a second half of the year wasn't as good as his first half. He'll still be a good quarterback, but would you draft DK or JSN right now? Let's say if they were on the board. Which one would you pick?
Depends on what kind of team I'm building.
Let's say if it was ours.
If I'm more towards the win now, I'm going to go with DK Metcalf. I think also if I haven't drafted, let's say I've only drafted 1 or maybe 0 wide receivers, I'm inclined to go DK Metcalf because he's got that Calvin Johnson wide receiver 1 kind of prototype. and that can happen at any given time.
Yeah.
And so I really like that. I think JSN I think they're going to, I see them as guys that can finish really close together in the fantasy rankings, like Higgins and Chase, like Smith and Brown. They're just these guys that, every year I like to take a look at, like, who are the dynamic duo wide receivers in the league that can finish top 20, top 15, top 10, both of them. Tyreek and Waddle, those type of guys. I could see JSN and Metcalf doing that, in part because their games are very complementary.
Yeah. 100%. Love it.
All right. So we're sitting at the 509. No running backs drafted, no tight ends, 2 quarterbacks, 2 wide receivers. And there's been a running back run. We've missed out on Jacobs, Javonte Williams, Najee Harris, Ramondre, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, Nick Chubb. And to be fair, I think we're both okay with that.
Yeah.
So we're probably I'm still looking wide receiver here. You probably want to go with Dalton Kincaid.
So I was actually thinking through that, and I was like, that's not going to happen in this draft. But my next thought was actually, so it's interesting, ADP wise, Kincaid is tied in 5 and Goddard is tied in 6. And I would actually want Goddard over Kincaid, but we have Devonta Smith. Would that stop you from, let's say, even if we wanted to draft Goddard here, would having already a Eagles pass catcher kind of hold you back from drafting Goddard here?
I would have a little bit of pause here because they aren't a super high volume passing team. They score a lot of points and they're really efficient, but a lot of that is Hurts' ability to run. Both wide receivers get lots of opportunity. Goddard gets plenty of opportunity. There's a reason, he's tight end 5, tight end 6. He's good. And it seems like Sirianni isn't as tied to that dual tight end thing that, Peterson was, where, that's where the focus of the passing game is going. So that kind of dings Goddard a little bit. I don't hate it. I'm not going to draft any of the, maybe if J.K. Dobbins fell a couple spots, he's sitting at the 602 ADP wise. If he was to fall a couple spots, I might take him if he fell down there to us. I'm not going to go with, Dameon Pierce or Derrick Henry. They're reaching towards the end of the next round. So for me, we're looking at Debo, Quentin Johnston, Treylon Burks, DJ Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Jamison Williams. Those are like the next 6 ADP wise, wide receiver 21 through 27. Any of them catch your fancy?
This is a kind of a dead zone, I feel like.
It is. This is a great spot to make a trade.
Yeah, yep. Let trade back for someone else. But if I had to pick right now, I'd probably go Jerry Jeudy or Godwin. But I'm not excited about either of those picks. Who would you pick?
Godwin is puzzling because, we can see the sunset on Mike Evans. He's 30 years old, 9 1,000-yard seasons. He's going to have the worst quarterback situation of his entire career. I fully expect the 1,000-yard season streak to end. Godwin plays out of the slot. It feels like he's going to be a target hog in this offense. I just don't know if the offensive line is going to warrant it. And it wouldn't surprise me if they cut off 150 or 200 pass attempts. Not because they're good at running the ball, but just because they're overall a bad team.
Yep.
So, they're going to drop from over 700 passes to under 600 passes. I feel pretty good about that. I think I'm Godwin's what? He's 28 or 29 years old now too. He's getting up there.
I think Chris Godwin's 26.
Is he?
He is 27.
27. So we split the difference on it.
Yep.
So, at 27 for the wide receiver, he's kind of he should be like right in his prime.
Yeah, February 27th. So he'll be 27 this whole season.
So he's right in his prime. He's healthy. Will Baker or Trask be able to get him the ball is the real question. I'm okay with the Godwin pick. In part because there's nobody on the list here right now that that makes me want to pound the table.
If I had to draft anyone, I would draft Kincaid here. If it was me, but
yeah, if I couldn't make a deal, I mean, we're probably at that range at 6th round or late 5th round. I could see going Dobbins because we're building a win now team with our quarterbacks, our 2 wide receivers. I feel like Dobbins on a run predominant team.
I love that. Yeah, let's do Dobbins.
Okay.
We're overthinking it.
So Dobbins, his ADP is 602. We're going to reach up and grab him at the 509. So that gives us our RB1, who is coming off his RB17. So basically, if he finishes top 15, we gain value in that. And I feel like we're ready for that. Last season, all of the things that made him a good running back were there last season, except his breakaway speed. Now we're 2 years away. Like, he was breaking off those big runs, and it was like he was out there hobbling with a walker, and he was just getting caught. So I think the speed is going to be back. So we got 5 rounds in, 2 quarterbacks, Lawrence and Jones, 2 receivers, Garrett Wilson and Devonta Smith. Took our first running back in J.K. Dobbins. We're going to go ahead and hit a break, and we'll come back here and finish out the next few rounds.
What can we expect from you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite. But that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition. And I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing. But I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Come on! Let's go! Come on, dig it! Yeah!
Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire. Over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush. You were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose
no,
on the loose. Watch
Moose.
out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations. And no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Yeah!
And we're back. We're talking ADP, building a team from the 109 spot. So far, we've drafted Trevor Lawrence, followed it up with Garrett Wilson, came back in the third with Devonta Smith, Daniel Jones in the fourth, and then we went who am I missing? I missed
Devonta
somebody.
Smith and then J.K. Dobbins, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah, Dobbins was in the fifth. We reached for him a little bit.
Yep.
All right,
What
so
you
we're
got?
going into the sixth round. One running back, two wide receivers, two quarterbacks. Yeah, I can't help but notice there's a couple dark red spots on this ADP here in the sixth and seventh rounds. We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about him. Trey Lance down 10 spots, and Kenny Pickett down 10 spots, which corresponds, oddly enough, with Jared Goff being up 9 spots and Geno Smith being up 9 spots. Now, correspond isn't the right word because they're not on the same teams. But it seems like it's setting in that Brock Purdy is going to be healthy and that Trey Lance isn't going to be the starter in San Francisco. Is that what this ADP and these mock drafts are telling us?
Well, yeah. So first off, it's telling us that Trey Lance doesn't have a buyer's market right now, because if someone wanted to trade for him, they would have by now. So that's telling us one thing. And also just the news has been very positive about Brock Purdy, but it also sounds like if Brock Purdy isn't healthy, it's Sam Darnold. We're hearing a lot of good news about him. And just looking still, I'm no quarterback guru when it comes to throwing motion, all that stuff, but Trey Lance doesn't look like a natural thrower. And even those camp videos and just all that stuff, he looks like someone who needs a lot of developing time. And how old is he? 23, 24, but he hasn't been able to get reps in. He's been recovering from injury and all this stuff. So yeah, I think this is just the beginning of watching that Trey Lance dip, keep on dipping until we find out what really is going to be the case. And I think Kenny Pickett should be way above Trey Lance, but currently still Kenny Pickett is still pretty much a round and a half behind Trey Lance still. And that is Pickett's drop. I don't quite understand that one. What do you think? What caused the drop there?
Yeah, I don't know, unless it's all this talk about Najee Harris is back and going to be great and going to eat up the snaps and just they're going to run the ball to death. I suppose, it's worked before for other teams. Yeah. And I like Najee as a back, but it seems like at what Pickett is QB 22. Now, from a QB number perspective, I don't think that's terribly far off. I'd probably have him 18, maybe. I think 18, 17 is probably where he would be for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like Deontay Johnson's prime for a comeback. They invested in the offensive line some. They've got Freiermuth, who's rock steady. George Pickens, who is kind of a boomer bust guy right now, but he if he can get consistent, he looks phenomenal.
Calvin Austin, your guy.
Yeah. Have I cut him yet in that league?
Mm-mm. Not
We'll have
yet.
to try and trade him again. I don't know why I drafted Calvin Austin. He's 5'8" and 165 pounds. I don't know what I was thinking. And then
Would
Goff
you
is
would you
rising,
would you
but
want
he's only QB 19, so I don't think that's out of whack for where his value is. Geno at QB 21, I don't know that that's really off kilter either.
would you prefer Geno or Pickett in a dynasty? Let's just say you're a middle of the road team.
I'm gonna take Pickett just because he's 7-8 years younger, 10 years younger.
Russell Wilson or Pickett?
It depends on the condition of my team. I
Middle
feel
of
like
the road.
Russ is the one that's going to help me win this year. I expect him to bounce back. They've got a good wide receiver core, new offense. I think Sean Payton is going to be great for him. So I'm probably going Russ. I may even go Russ in a rebuild, depending on what stage of the rebuild I am, because I feel like we could get 3 more years out of him.
And also, if he does have a high scoring season, you'll be able to trade him for more. It's just value wise, taking the value there.
All right, so moving on to round 6.
Who are we drafting though?
Yeah, you want to? We can go ADP. We got Dalton Kincaid sitting there at the 604, but you've already said you have Goddard over him. So, are they back to back in your rankings?
Yeah, Goddard's my tight end 5, and Kincaid's my tight end 6.
I mean, it's like Dawson Knox never even existed.
Has he?
So we also have Kittle sitting there at 609.
Yep.
So there's, I think, 3 viable tight ends. I'm going to lean more towards an established tight end over Kincaid. If we're going to go tight end here, see, we already grabbed Godwin, correct?
No.
Or no, that's
We
right.
talked
We went
about
Godwin. So
Godwin,
Godwin
but we
is
went
still
Godwin.
here. I don't hate that pick.
No, I would do Godwin.
Yeah, I think that's at 27 years old. Quarterback situation is going to be a little bit iffy. I agree. At the ADP, it feels like a reach of it's, or it looks like a reach of 5 or 6 spots. I don't think that's a terrible reach. I think Godwin gives us our wide receiver 3, and we're setting up there pretty good.
Love it.
See, that was the 604. So now we're dropping down to the 709. We still haven't grabbed a tight end. We only have 1 running back. We just had a run of 5 wide receivers go before us in Ayuk, Terry McLaurin, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, and Calvin Ridley. Anybody in that group, you're like, man, that dude's too high.
You can probably tell who I want to draft in this situation. No, I think those are all valued. I would probably put Ayuk and Flowers and Pickens at the lowest of that tier. But yeah, I think that tier belongs together. I'd probably pop Hollywood Brown up higher. A lot of these drafts weren't done post the Hopkins cut, so I'll be interested in probably within a couple days from now. I'll get 4 or 5 more drafts to boost.
All right, so and looking at the ADP, Brown has risen 3 spots in the last week and a half or so. So no, I got to be honest. I don't know whose jersey you were holding up there. Oh, Jahan Dotson.
That's who I want.
Okay,
it's right there.
I love it. I have one concern with Jahan Dotson.
Okay, shoot.
Last year, so we know how good Terry McLaurin is.
Yep.
Last year, Curtis Samuel was wide receiver. Where do you think he was last year?
63.
He was wide receiver 33, which was a lot higher than I thought.
What? I remember him having like a stretch of games that was like, oh, he was a wide receiver 1 during this stretch. I didn't know he was that high though.
Yep.
Get
Didn't
outta
miss
here.
any games. No, he only scored 10.4 points per game, which
34,
isn't
yep.
great on its face. But he's in there. He's getting touches. He's making plays. I think he had 38 carries last year too. Something like
Probably,
that. I
but
could
he
be
was
wrong. And
not
maybe
good
that
in
was somebody
I
else
can
that like
attest.
that.
No, he got carries a good amount, but they
So
weren't
he's
great
like
carries.
Dwight Peebles over at Dynasty Nerds just recently did an article about Sam Howell, and in it he talked a little bit about Curtis Samuel and referenced him as Deebo Samuel light. So I think that's a lofty comparison, a little bit maybe. That's coming from me, an Ohio State fan. But at wide receiver 33, I was honestly caught off guard. I would have expected him to be outside of wide receiver 4, and he was a high wide receiver 3, mid wide receiver, no, low end wide receiver 3.
Did he play running back at Ohio State, or was that at a college that he was at beforehand? Because
No,
I knew
he
that
played literally the same type of role, wide
Okay.
receiver, and he ran the ball some.
Okay,
Him,
because
Harris Campbell played that role.
Okay,
That was was
him
an
and
Urban.
Harris Campbell are
It was
kind of the
modeled
same.
after Percy Harvin because that's what Urban Meyer did.
Yep. Okay.
So he's always had that hybrid back.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, I get that. I think Curtis Samuel will have his games and he'll have usage. But you also look at how Dotson, the kind of the graph of when Dotson kept on getting more target share, Samuel's target share went down. And he's a more complete wide receiver. And
I don't disagree with that at all. I'm very good with Dotson here. I love the wide receiver talent all around. I think Curtis Samuel makes a beautiful wide receiver 3 because he has that versatility. Jahan Dotson, while not being big, he's only 5'10", I think, but he's about 185 pounds. So he kind of clears that too little to be a thing threshold.
Yep.
Not by a lot, but he clears it nonetheless.
He's 5'11", 183.
All right.
So, yeah.
So he's got just enough size.
And he got those
I like
T-Rex arms.
as a wide receiver 3.
arms.
He's got a lot of upside, so I dig that.
Yep. And from a team building perspective, we're kind of going a little bit overbalanced on wide receiver, but that's always my goal.
Well, but it's a dynasty startup too, so
I want lots of wide receivers.
We got our first running back in the 5th round, 6th round, and he has the potential to be an RB1. So now let's see, that was pick number 704.
Yep.
Or no, that was 609, right?
704.
704.
Because 609 was Chris Godwin.
Gotcha. All right. So you'll take Dotson over McLaurin then?
McLaurin went before this.
Well,
right?
We pick at the 704.
He was directly at the 704.
Right.
Ooh.
A little bit older. Really
hard.
good though.
No, I thought we were at the 709.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because Marquise Brown.
Yeah.
So I'm losing track.
Don't make me make that call.
So now we're at 804.
Great.
804. Zach Charbonnet is at the ADP. That's not who I want. I mean, I think the case can be made to take him because he's young, he has talent. He's probably going to get some opportunity, but he's not going to get all of the opportunity. But I just feel like 804. I think that's still too early to take.
If I had
him.
a hot takes, if there was an episode of Fantasy Football Hot Takes, one of my hot take would be Zach Charbonnet outscores Kenneth Walker
Okay.
this year.
So you're good with Charbonnet at the 804?
I would be good if we wanted to go running back. Let me look at a couple. Let's just make sure.
I mean,
I would draft A-Chain ahead of Charbonnet. But if you those would be my two that I would be willing to draft here. Or if we want to go for more quarterback depth and get a quarterback 3, Jordan Love is here. And he offers some pretty good value as well.
yeah, I like Love because he's young. He did sign an extension, so they do have a little opportunity to look at him. I think he's going to be a decent quarterback.
Yeah.
Is he going to be Aaron Rodgers? Probably not. If they were to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love at that same level, that would be
unfair.
quite the feat.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just can't bring myself to draft A-Chain especially as my RB2. I mean, at that point, you're hoping he is approaching Warwick Dunn stage, and I just don't think he's going to get A, the opportunity, or B, he's good enough to do that.
Yeah, I can see your point.
I'm okay. I would draft Charbonnet. I would draft. Let's see. I don't even
easy
hate
pick would have
Legion.
been
What?
Miles Sanders here at the 802, but he's drafted. But that would be the easy pick for me.
Yeah,
I feel like.
that's who I would be sitting there hoping Sanders fell to us. That would have been the guy.
Yep.
I'm really good.
Deontay
Also,
Johnson.
I kind of like Rashad White because he's going to get some opportunity, but I don't know. He wasn't terrible. Well, he seemed to get a lot of opportunities, and yes, he caught 50 passes, even though Lenny caught 70. We've already said we feel like they're going to drop at least 150 attempts from last year, and he wasn't real efficient in either the running game or the passing game. So I'm a touch scared off by Rashad White. Akers, he's doesn't have great vision, a little bit dinged up. Isaiah Pacheco has such a limited role. He's just waiting to get replaced. Dalvin Cook, you say A-Chain, and my immediate thought was, why are we drafting Cook's backup over him? I almost like, so we're at the 804. If I was going to reach on anybody here, it might be Michael Mayer.
Blah. No.
Well, hear me out.
Okay, I'll hear you.
So, no, he's not super efficient. And the cool comp is Jason Witten. But I think the Jason Witten comp is, we keep trying to comp him to late stage Jason Witten, but he's really more of early stage Jason Witten, who had those 6, 7, 8 year run of being a really productive fantasy tight end. He doesn't play the same type of game as Waller. He doesn't play the same type of game as Kyle Pitts or Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews. He's more traditional, but I could see him 65 passes, 750 yards, 8 touchdowns on a relatively consistent basis.
Yeah, but this is a rookie tight end.
Right.
And I thought you hated those. We already labeled you as a anti. So you must be fairly high on Michael Mayer then, because there's even some, there's David Njoku here. There's Waller. There's
Njoku's down there further. Looking at this, I would definitely pass on Mayer and wait around to get Njoku.
Okay.
But I probably wouldn't take Mayer over Deontay Johnson, whose ADP is one spot above him.
So you would take Mayer over Deontay. Okay. I have Sam Laporta ahead of Mayer, but I get it. I get it with Mayer. I think that he very well could be that next Jason Witten. And yeah, not the Raiders Jason Witten, but the Cowboys prime. But I do think nowadays it's harder for not as athletically gifted tight ends to succeed in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't hate that perspective. So to me, it feels like Jordan Love is the pick here at 804.
Jordan Love or Zach Charbonnet, whichever one you want.
Well, yeah.
Because let me tell you a fun little fact. Okay.
Okay.
So Rashad Penny in his last 2 years with the Seahawks averaged 6 yards per carry on inside runs. Walker averaged 3.8. So
yeah, Walker's a bounce it outside guy.
Correct. So I think that Charbonnet will have that inside work between the tackles work. He's a better pass catcher. So if you're telling me that we could draft a running back that has the inside the tackles work, that's going to be the pass catcher and the goal line back for a very heavy run oriented Seattle offense, like I'm pretty down for that. But
all right,
like I said,
I'm with you. Charbonnet it is.
Let's do it.
All right. So that gives us now, I feel like later in the draft, we'll have to bulk it up with, a James Conner, who somebody like that.
Yep.
A David Montgomery, maybe. All right. So at the 804, so that means we're dropping next pick is 909. Long run, had a few running backs, some wide receivers, had a lot of running backs. Akers, A-Chain, Pacheco, Aaron Jones, Cook go off after Charbonnet. McIntosh isn't gonna.
Kenny McIntosh is good. Thank you for bringing him up. He's don't listen to him. He's good.
The only thing McIntosh has going for him is that Pete Carroll on any given game will just feature whatever back is there. Somebody, McIntosh could walk up and say, "Man, Pete, your wife looked nice today." Next thing you know, McIntosh is playing 75% of the snaps.
Or he could get cut. It matters what tone.
Yeah, he's a decent pass catcher. I don't think he's I think he's a backup.
How's McIntosh's pass blocking?
It was pretty good.
So
he's pretty good. He's just slow. He's not fast
in those 2-minute drills because both Charbonnet and Walker aren't very good at pass blocking.
We'll have to go back and look at the nerd score and see how the pass blocking between Charbonnet and McIntosh scored. So we're sitting at 909.
We have a huge jump.
Darius Toney is the ADP right there.
Yeah,
we haven't drafted a tight end.
How many? He jumped 13 spots, so he's jumped a whole round since last month.
Yeah.
What do you think about him? Tell me what do you think about the conundrum of Kadarius Toney?
So he's the scariest guy in the NFL.
In multiple
because
ways.
he could literally catch 10 passes for 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, return 2 punts for a touchdown and a kickoff for a touchdown, all in the same game. Or
that's the season stats.
Exactly. It's like, you just, when he decides to go into young Joker mode and start, I'd rather be a rap star than a football player. Oh, I got a soft tissue issue on my thigh. I'm going to be out 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I know these guys, they're prideful. They've worked hard to get there. And my son is 12 years old and plays sports, and we're going through him learning his body right now and the difference between, oh, I'm sore or I'm hurt versus I'm injured.
Yeah.
There's a spectrum there. Some things you push through, and other things you go to the doctor and get checked out. And we're trying to figure out and teach him how to figure out what the difference is, because not everything requires an ambulance.
Yep.
And Kadarius Toney seems like he's still figuring that out at 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
So I would be out on Kadarius Toney in the ninth. The upside is he's playing with Patrick Mahomes, and at some point another wide receiver has to be good there. Somebody's going to be. And it has to happen before Kelsey retires. Somebody's going to step into that primary wide receiver role. I don't know if it's going to be, he's going into the second year with Mahomes, even though he wasn't as active last year. Sky Moore is going into the second year. Moore was fairly highly regarded coming in as a rookie. Either one of those guys could step up and be that wide receiver one for Kansas City and just leave everybody else in the dust. We know what Marquez Valdes-Scantling is. He's one of my favorites, but he's not consistent enough to be there. Where we sit here, we're one spot ahead of David Njoku, and so this is where I'm going to grab the tight end here. I think Njoku could have a really good season. He's settled in Cleveland. They signed him to an extension. He's on the field. He's very, very athletic. Questionable hands, but he does have some concentration drops, we'll call it. But I do like David Njoku a lot.
Yep, love the pick. I think that we saw a lot from him last year. Questionable hands, but also some injury concerns. He does have shades of Kadarius Toney of like, man, you're injured a lot, but very talented and very athletic. And at this range, I am looking for that in a tight end.
We've filled most of the starting lineup. We got Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones, J.K. Dobbins, Zach Charbonnet, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith. Did we get Godwin?
Yes, sir.
Do we take McLaurin or Dotson?
Dotson.
Okay. I know we were doing that, and then we discovered McLaurin there. Dotson. We got Njoku at tight end. I don't think I'm missing anybody. We're at the bottom of the hour. We're going to go ahead and hit a break. And when we come back after this break, we're going to put the ADP in the rearview mirror, and we're going to talk productive struggle.
So let's get into some best ball philosophy here.
Yeah.
In your experience, going back many, many, many years, drafting in national tournaments, Bradley, have you historically been shying away from the running back position in favor of wide receivers? In favor of, if you're drafting in the FFPC tight end premium format, in favor of tight ends as well. Is that the smart play when you're drafting this early in the drafting season?
Yeah, so taking value is going to be huge, and looking at like running backs and wide receivers, like you want to take a look at how the structure is. So you mentioned earlier the FFPC has a couple different types, like they've got super flex and one quarterback, and so that's going to change your strategy a little bit if you have only 2 wide receivers or if you're drafting 3 wide receivers. And of course, the PPR is a different aspect compared to other formats or other tournaments. And so keeping in mind the pass catching upside of some of the running backs may be more valuable in those formats. So the Austin Ecklers, the Christian McCaffreys may be more value because they get more receptions, and so like I loved taking late shots a couple years ago on like the JD McKissicks of the world who would get 50 receptions really cheaply. So that's something to consider. But when it comes to like overall value, like you're drafting, you're in the middle of a draft, and you just noticed that, I don't know, maybe it's Chris Godwin has fallen 14 spots, but Chris Godwin was not in your plans to be drafting. Like maybe you don't have a strong player take on Chris Godwin, or we're not like, my take is that I don't think the Bucs are going to be particularly good this year. But for him to be dropping, let's say 14 spots is more than a full round. And based on the data that we've seen, if you get to draft a player more than 12 spots ahead or behind ADP, so they drop 12 or more spots, you have an 84% edge over the rest of the tournament players who are drafting this player. Because typically this player isn't going to drop. the average draft position is a really strong indicator of where a player is going to go. And I think that is also on the flip side. If you are reaching too much, you're giving up value in your drafts. And so when it comes to value-based drafting, you need to consider, just because this guy is in my plans or I don't have a strong player take on him, maybe that's your opportunity to sprinkle in some shares of this player at a good price.
All right. Welcome back to the Dynasty Nerd Show on the Better Sports Network. We're going to talk a little bit of productive struggle. But before we do you need help with your fantasy team? Make sure to go to fantasyalarm.com and check out the fantasy football player profiles. Today's player profile is Broncos tight end Greg Dulcich, written by the inimitable Britt Flynn. Britt is fantastic. You can check her out on Fantasy Alarm, all their different platforms. Read through it to find out if he's a hit or a bust. Check it out on fantasyalarm.com.
I just got done reading that article. That was a great article.
Yeah. She does a great job. So I've never done a productive struggle draft.
I can tell.
Because I'm egocentric.
Yep.
And so I think, well, I can draft a team to win this year. Why do I want to do that? Why do I want to build a team that's not set to win this year? Let me start out with a team that's going to win this year. So I haven't done a startup since setting the standard was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was an interesting startup. I kind of launched into a productive struggle in that draft.
You did. And I didn't, I made a conscious effort. So last year on Sundays, I was reviewing and setting 27 lineups. So I was in charity leagues, and I had 20 dynasty leagues, and
you're a popular guy.
I loved it. Had a very, very, very good routine about it. So it wasn't like it was too much. Well, I've been holding off, haven't done any startups, and just Josh, who spends a lot of time in our chat here, and he's in the Discord, and he's joined a couple leagues. He's the defending champion. No, he's the initial champion of the Dynasty Nerds Give Back charity league. He won it the first year, and so we've got to know each other a little bit. And he's asked me a couple times, "Hey, I've got a startup. You want to join it?" And I've been no. I've been being good. I've been being disciplined. And a couple weeks ago, he offered, and I was like, no. And then a few days later, I'm like, "Hey, you still got that spot?" And he's like, "No, it filled." Then a few days after that, he's like, "Hey, starting another one." I'm like, "All right, why not? Let's go." And so I decided, not before the draft, but as I was at pick 110, and I was sitting there, and I thought the draft's going, and I thought, you know what? I want Trevor Lawrence. I want to see if he'll fall to me, and he didn't. He went at the 107, which is where he should go. And Justin Fields was sitting there, and I thought, you know what? Let me see if I can trade out. I ended up trading out back to the 209. So I had the 203 and 209. Then the 203 rolled around, and I ended up trading out of that. And then as I was watching the draft go, my first draft pick, I actually traded up from 209 to 207, and I drafted Deshaun Watson.
That's a great pick right there.
The last quarterback in that tier, ahead of Tua, ahead of Kyler, ahead of Dak. To me, I felt like there was a clear separation there, and he's young enough that he should bounce back on the field to where he was in Houston or relatively close to that. And he had some really, really good years. And so I thought, I can afford to go there. And so I went with Deshaun Watson at the 207. Had traded back and ended up, I traded my, or no, it was No, not third round reversal. Traded my 310 and my 4-3. I traded back on both of those. Traded back on my 510. So I don't know if I'm not smart enough to do that. Oh, is that will Tyler do that?
I think Tyler would. Yep. We're
right.
gonna. Ooh, this is gonna be so fancy.
Oh. So, I'm trading back and I'm trading back. And then my next pick was at the 602.
Yep.
So I've got Deshaun Watson at the 207. Coming up on the 602. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I drafted Quentin Johnston, rookie wide receiver. Depending on who you talk to, he's got a ton of upside, or he's a real wild card shot in the dark, could go either way.
Yep.
But I was comfortable with that.
Ooh, look at this.
At the 609, and at the 609, I went with our guy Jahan Dotson. So we're closing out 6 rounds, and I've drafted Deshaun Watson, Quentin Johnston, and Jahan Dotson. Picked up a couple first-round picks next year.
And you drafted.
All right, I'm just kind of making deals and moving back. After Dotson came back around, and I actually made my pick again at, 7-10. I went with another guy we picked tonight, Jordan Love. My thought is he's got potential. The team likes him. Well, they haven't seen enough of him to extend him with a regular contract. They did extend him so they could look at him for the next 2 years and make something happen. Rolled around 803, went with Pat Freiermuth. Not the highest upside tight end. Might not have been the greatest pick there. There were guys like Marquise Brown, Chris Godwin, Christian Kirk, Amari Cooper, all older wide receivers. I just wasn't going to go there.
Is this tight end premium?
It is a tight end premium.
Okay.
So, he's a back end
That's
tight
good
end
value.
one. It's kind of how I view him. Tight ends have a long career. It felt like a stable pick for a startup, especially in a productive struggle.
Yep.
So then my next pick I had was the 806. And here I went Marquise Brown.
Love it.
I'm not a huge fan of Marquise Brown. He's explosive. He makes some plays. Maybe he's tainted by the low volume Baltimore offense, but I just haven't been that into him. He's another guy that I felt like, if he has a good year, I could probably move him for a first round pick plus sometime during this season. Chances are he's not going to have a great year because he's going to play it with Colt McCoy a lot, but I was willing to take the shot. Another pick I traded for, my next pick at the 903. Here's where it goes off the rails a little bit for a productive struggle. I took Zach Charbonnet.
Ooh, baby.
I know in a productive struggle, I probably don't need to be drafting running backs that early.
It's the running back to draft, though.
Yeah, I feel like in 3 seasons, going into year 3, there's a strong potential. He's established himself as the back there. Maybe him and Walker are still sharing it. They've got set roles or something. But he's a young back, a rookie back, and I am going to have to start 2 running backs. So I went with a rookie who I had liked earlier in the pre-draft process, despite not getting great landing spot draft capital. But then I roll back around, and here's another guy we were talking about, took Kadarius Toney at the, the 9-10. So the end of the 9th round, I'm taking Kadarius Toney just based on potential. I don't know where it's going to go with him. Like we said, he could have a phenomenal year. He could be another person that is great trade bait. to me, it felt like worth the risk because I'm not trying to win this year anyways. So I'm aiming young. No 10-3, I traded that away. Dropping down to the 10-10, took Josh Downs. There's a lot to like about Josh Downs. He's not very big, 5'10", 180, falls in that small wide receiver category. Had a good season, couple seasons at North Carolina. I do have concerns that Anthony Richardson, one of the things he doesn't do fantastically, he doesn't throw short as well as he does deep. He's got a big arm, puts a little too much mustard on it. I think he's going to develop fine. And Downs is a great compliment. I know he played outside in college. He's probably going to be in the slot in the pros, and he's got two big wide receivers on the outside, and 6'5", 6'3" Michael Pittman, 6'3" Alec Pierce, two big guys with good speed. I think it's a nice fit there. So there is potentially something there. Wrap back around the 11:02. I grabbed Marvin Mims. It's like I'm drafting all the wide receivers in this rookie class except Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yep. And Zay Flowers.
Jordan Addison, I guess.
So, quick question. You would pick Downs over Jonathan Mingo?
I went back and forth with it. And
okay.
So Mingo, I think they're equally as risky. And I've had Mingo higher than him going into rookie drafts. Mm-hmm. But I won't say I've soured on Mingo. I've just tempered my expectations. He's got a great opportunity, and he'll have to make something do with it. Mingo has an outstanding physical profile, but he's got a terrible production profile.
Yeah.
Versus Josh Downs, who has an outstanding production profile, but not a great physical profile.
Yeah.
So it was just a situation there where I felt like I'm going to pass on Mingo this time. I'm going to go ahead and go with Josh Downs.
Okay.
And I thought that if Mingo made it back to me at the 11-2, I would have taken him there.
Okay.
He went at the 10-12. So we wrapped around at the 11-2, and I took Marvin Mims.
Good stuff.
Good deep threat. Okay size. A little underweight, but he's 5'11". 2 picks later, I reached and took John Mechie.
This was the first surprise, I feel like, for me, is I didn't know that you were this high on Mechie.
I think Mechie has a chance to be the wide receiver one there. He was good in college.
Mm-hmm.
I know he played at Alabama, and a lot of guys at Alabama are good in college. He's got decent size, good speed. He's a good route runner, and he seems to be recovered from the lymphoma. I think all signs are pointing up. If I could have, I probably would have drafted. Let's see, where did Stroud go? I was looking at Stroud. He's up.
Stroud
there.
went 311.
Yeah, so I was looking at Stroud at 210.
Okay.
And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take a shot. I was looking at Richardson, and I thought, if I don't get Richardson there, then I'll get Stroud on the wraparound. And I got a good deal at the 210. Thought I could risk it. Richardson went 210. Stroud went 302. So then I traded out of the 303 and went ahead and moved back. I like Mechie a lot. I think he's going to be a big surprise there.
Sedated Fork says, what I like about Mingo is that the Panthers traded away draft capital for Young, so it may be a while before they use draft capital on a wide receiver again. However, they could add wide receivers in free agency, so who knows?
Those are great points.
And did they trade up for Mingo? I'm trying to remember.
I don't think they traded up for Mingo. But I mean, pre-draft, after his combine, there was some talk that he might be one of the guys to go in the first round. Now, in the end, that was all moot, and only Smith and Jigba went. But so after
so he went 38 still. So that's
that's high.
close.
That's Michael Pittman almost.
Yep.
Pittman was what, the second pick of the second round or something. At 11-7, this one was a reach, and I know it, but I thought I got to start 2 running backs. Why not take a guy that I like? And so I drafted Tank Bigsby.
I love it.
It's not a great productive struggle draft pick. I get that. That's okay. Now, after that, I was on vacation for a while. I didn't have a pick for the next 2.5 rounds. So then we stroll up here at the 13-10. Again, I'm buying assets that have the potential to grow with this team, be ready in a couple years. I wanted to build some depth. I drafted Watson. I drafted Love. And here I went ahead and drafted Hendon Hooker, who he's a little bit older, 25 years old already, but he should be the heir to Jared Goff. And he was having a phenomenal year. He was Heisman front runner until he got injured. Drafted Hendon Hooker there, came back around at the 1403, dipped into the tight end pool again, drafted Luke Schoonmaker out of Dallas. I like Jake Ferguson. Schoonmaker just has a much better athletic profile. And I thought, what's the rush? I can take a tight end that needs to earn his spot for a season or two. So I went Schoonmaker there. We're almost through the 14th round of a 37-round draft. Josh he created a league with just monster rosters. I don't think there's going to be anybody left. But as part of my
37 picks.
My process, let me go to my team. So my team, I've traded some picks and moved back. I'm currently sitting on 4 2024 first, one of which should be my own, which, unless I screw something up totally, should be Caleb Williams. I've got 2 second-round picks in 24, 3 first-round picks in 25, along with my own 3rd, 4th, and 5th-round picks in both years. So I'm not done wheeling and dealing yet. My goal is to grab another first or 2 over the next couple seasons. We'll have to see how it plays out. Some of the guys in the chat in the league had not experienced a productive struggle build either. And so they were a little bit confused at first. So, as we talked through the whole process of what I was doing, they were like, oh, but again, they were like me typically and going, well, I'm okay winning year 1.
Yep.
So
I love that Tank pick though. That Tank, you look at the running backs that are going around him, you got James Conner, Kamara, P. Ryan, Gibson, Dillon.
It's like, I'm not going to draft any of those guys.
Yeah.
So Better Boss is asking, what 2024 draft picks did I acquire? I acquired 3 first-round draft picks and 1 second-round draft pick to go along with my slate of 4 picks. So I have not traded away any future picks to make these deals. I have only acquired future picks. So right now I have 33% of the first round. And as we were talking in the chat for the league while we were drafting, somebody pointed out that, look, if for some reason my team starts to really overperform, I would have no qualms trading away those first-round picks for players that are going to help me win. To me, that's what they are. Like, if I'm going to have rookies or second-year players on my bench that still have potential to break out, but let's say Charbonnet, something happens for whatever reason, Charbonnet looks like he's going to put up 1,200 yards and 50 catches. Well, now all of a sudden it's like, now then does Bigsby all of a sudden he's going off? He's going to put up 1,000 yards and score 12 touchdowns because he's getting the red zone work. Well, I've already drafted a really good quarterback theoretically and a pretty good quarterback with potential in Jordan Love, and so if it goes crazy, if Jahan Dotson goes off, if John Mechie meets expectations, if Pat Freiermuth, breaks out and has a top 5 tight end season, I've got enough assets. I've got Marquise Brown. If that starts to click, all of these things, I'm in the position where I've got lots of assets, and I'm going to have lots of assets to make a move this year if things go wrong, which is really right. And if things go right, which is, I lose a lot of games, I'm set up perfectly for next year. If I could add Marvin Harrison, Caleb Williams, and I don't know which, Rock Sanders or Travion Henderson to this team next year, Brock Bowers, I'd be killing it.
Yep. No, that would be awesome. And just a quick question. You would pick, you drafted Dotson over McLaurin here. Was it just simply the age?
It was.
Okay.
McLaurin's 20, almost 28 or already 28. He was a little older coming into the league.
Yep.
And I expect him to continue to be good for, a few years, but Dotson just is 4 or 5 years younger, 3 years younger.
Yeah. Thought so. Makes sense.
So it's been an interesting process. There were stretches where I traded out and I didn't really want anybody. And I think you have to be ready to pivot. And when Lawrence went and I decided, I know Fields will be chalk here, but I'm going to pass on Fields. I'm not going to draft Richardson. Maybe if Richardson comes back to me or if Stroud comes back to me, those things just didn't work out. All right, Peter. Well, we're getting ready to close up shop. I appreciate you coming on here and hanging out with me. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
So you can find me at Pete Bartosky on Twitter, and I let everyone know when we're about to do mock drafts on Dynasty Nerds. So if you want to do mock drafts, follow me there. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan. So you can find me at culture_coach on Twitter. I'm hosting the Fantasy Football Roundtable twice a week. I'm on the Dynasty Nerds Discord with Peter on Tuesday nights.
Yep.
We have a great time talking trades, Tuesday Trade Talk with Peter and Dennis.
Yep.
And I'm usually here Thursday nights on the Better Sports Network, Dynasty Nerd Show. Have a great night.
Bye, everyone.